Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Ferry was cancelled for 10:40, so we're going to go to Tsawwassen and try and get to Schwartz Bay to get up to Nanaimo.
Another winter storm waxed the south coast with plenty of wind and plenty of travel challenges. Also,
还是一个选择的机会吧，以后。
birth tourism, why it's rising and what it may be costing our healthcare system. And
what the United States did yesterday should have been done long ago.
Plus, what's the fallout? The U.S. kills Iran's top general, stoking fears of escalation.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Mike and Anita are away tonight. Travel plans have been thrown into a bit of chaos due to a winter storm on BC's south coast. We're going to have more on the snowfall it's brought to the interior in just a few moments. But first, we join our Mira Baines live at the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal tonight. Mira, Friday night is normally busy. What is happening there?
Well, Dan, not much. Basically, it's relatively quiet here at the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal. It would normally be very busy on a Friday evening, but right now it's relatively quiet. It basically has a ghost town kind of feel right now. And basically what's happened is many of the ferry sailings have been canceled to Tsawwassen, from Tsawwassen to Schwartz Bay up until about 9 o'clock tonight. Many travelers have left the terminal tonight rather than wait. Wind gusts here are just starting to pick up. Now, this BC storm hit Vancouver Island earlier in the day. Now, wind gusts of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Some forecasters say up to 90 kilometers per hour are expected to hit the south coast. And some of those winds did hit Vancouver Island earlier today. And many people were left waiting in line at BC Ferries terminals, waiting, hoping that maybe they could get onto a sailing earlier. It was very frustrating for travelers today on a Friday. BC Ferry says it did cancel sailings on 7 routes due to excessive winds. But many travelers who are frustrated are also taking it in stride. Take a listen.
With the wind, yeah, there's nothing much you can do. So what can you do? You just got to hope and pray that winds will die down and we can make it.
What do you have planned for the next 4 hours?
Trying to occupy the 4-year-old.
Has this come to be expected, traveling back and forth in the winter?
Yeah, kinda. We don't really have the option this weekend, so we're gonna wait.
So hopefully those patient people do make their ferries, Mira. What is the latest on the sailing situation?
Well, right now, Dan, the ferry situation is not looking very good. Like I mentioned, ferry sailings from here to Schwartz Bay are canceled up until 9 o'clock tonight. And so BC Ferries is telling everyone that the weather could change at any moment and to check their ferry schedules and check them online. This is what they had to say earlier today.
Weather is dynamic and it could change at any point in time, so we are closely monitoring the situation, and we do encourage travelers to check our website before they travel just to have the latest, most up-to-date information on our sailing schedule.
Dan, as I'm speaking to you, the winds are picking up and so is the rain. Before I started speaking to you, we didn't feel any rain, and now I can see it starting to come down. This BC storm is expected to bring up to 150 millimeters of rain. Dan?
Thank you, Mira. Mira Baines live for us tonight at the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal. Let's go to the weather expert, meteorologist Brett Soderholm. Brett, what more can we expect this weekend and into the days ahead?
Right. Well, as Mira was just saying, certainly some of the strongest winds are still expected to be coming. If we took a live look right now at our sustained winds across the south coast and parts of southern Vancouver Island and our Gulf Islands, you're going to see these values aren't in themselves very impressive, but we consider the gusts here add a good solid 20 kilometers an hour to that, and that's where we're at now. That's expected to get even more intense as time goes on. Take a look at the widespread nature of these wind warnings. This includes the city of Vancouver, Howe Sound, into the Fraser Valley, and certainly all the way across Vancouver Island and our Gulf Islands. We are expecting gusts fairly consistently at 70 kilometers an hour, and that already has been reported in places like Campbell River, which gusted up to about 82 kilometers an hour already today. Elsewhere, though, weather is not stopping for this weekend. We still have a rainfall warning in effect for Vancouver Island, up to 150 millimeters of rain there. Farther to the north, almost 2 feet of snow, 60 centimeters for places like Terrace and Kitimat. Over to the Peace region, it's another 15 to 20 centimeters there. And perhaps most importantly, for anyone that is considering traveling tonight into the interior, I would highly recommend not taking the Coquihalla. A snowfall warning is in effect here. 15 to 30 centimeters of snow is forecast, and it is expected to be going really heavily throughout the overnight tonight. So maybe postpone it by a day. And in terms of our weekend here, it's not looking fantastic, but I'm going to have more on that when I come back.
All right. Thanks very much, Brett.
You're welcome.
Vancouver police are investigating the city's first homicide of this year. 62-year-old Jesus Cristobal Esteban was attacked in Oppenheimer Park on New Year's Day and later died of his injuries. As Deborah Goebel reports, his death has shaken up those living in the park, which still continues to believe, which most believe is still a safe place to live.
At Oppenheimer Park, most residents of this homeless camp know how fragile life can be. But the murder of 62-year-old Jesus Cristobal Esteban is particularly disturbing.
Well, I think anytime an elder gets beat to death, that's pretty bad.
Still, Miles Harper is well aware when addiction and poverty live side by side, tempers can be quick to flare.
So when they start owing each other, depending on who they owe, it can be dealt with fairly harshly on the streets. You know, but as far as feeling safe in the park, as long as you keep your nose clean and you don't go around and, you know, we're just people too.
There have been 2 shootings here over the past year. There have been fights and overdoses. Police are a continual presence in the park. And now it has a new distinction.
First homicide of 2020, yes.
Police say there were witnesses, but there are no suspects.
On January 1st, around 1 o'clock p.m., Vancouver police responded to a call in Oppenheimer Park of a man who was seriously assaulted near the basketball courts in the northeast corner of the park.
He died the next day as a result of his injuries.
Oh, his friends are still here. I mean, we had a conversation this morning about supporting each other through this.
But people here don't believe his death can be blamed on the tent city.
It could happen anywhere. The stuff you hear in the news is not always, you know, everything. Things that happen here we don't always hear about. And a lot of times it's the people that are from outside the park who don't live in here.
Still, it did happen in this park, and it will become fodder for more debate, more talk, more consultations on just what should be done about those who are living here.
The Parks Board has hired a third-party organization to assess the needs of the homeless and how to make recommendations. So right now it's in that, up to that third party. But
police say the investigation is still in its very early stages, but they do believe the victim and the suspect knew each other. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Vancouver.
A 33-year-old man has been charged with second-degree murder after another man was found dead in the parking lot of a Surrey strip mall yesterday. Michael James Petronio has been charged in the death of Jason Stanley Wells. That's the man on the screen. Officers say they were able to catch Petronio because a witness followed him and led police to his location. Petronio appeared in court this afternoon. A woman was rushed to hospital in serious condition this morning after she was hit by at least one car in Vancouver. It happened just before 7 this morning. The 65-year-old was hit near Victoria Drive and 43rd Avenue. Police say she may have been hit by 2 vehicles. It's still not clear whether she was in a crosswalk. Both drivers remained at the scene. It has been a disappointing start to this new year for Canadian residents hoping to reunite their families in Canada. The federal government made a last-minute announcement to put a family reunification program on hold. Our Eva Yuguen-Senge spoke to a permanent resident in Burnaby who's waited almost a year for another shot at bringing his parents to Canada.
I was shocked again that I was not happy.
While most celebrated the start of a new year on January 1st, Harmeet Singh worried about telling his parents they wouldn't be joining him in Canada anytime soon.
You plan for it. The whole year you plan for it that, okay, you're gonna have your family this time you're here.
The permanent resident planned on applying online to bring his parents here from India through Canada's Family Reunification Program. The forms were set to become available on January 1st. But on December 30th, the federal government announced it was putting the program on hold.
The systems is actually keep changing. I don't know what governments are doing. They keep playing with us actually.
Singh has lived in Canada for almost 10 years. He tried applying for his parents last January under a first-come, first-served online system. But within minutes, the first 27,000 applications have been filed, and the system closed. His wife has been living with his mother and father because he doesn't want them to be alone in India.
You're just losing the touch as well of the family. And what you're gonna teach your coming generation, that how they gonna live, right? And how the children's gonna learn about your community.
Last year, more than 100,000 people tried to apply to sponsor parents or grandparents.
We have an overall cap of how many immigrants we take. And so if we were to take up to, say, 100,000 parents and grandparents, it would mean we'd have to make cuts in the other categories.
The issue is top of mind for local MPs in immigrant-rich ridings like Surrey Centre.
Probably one of the most vital issues for a new family is to have their families reunified. So I want to get this right, and my colleagues, especially those in Surrey, also want to get this right. So they're working very hard to make sure the government does a good system.
Singh is thinking about bringing his parents to Canada from India on a long-term visitor visa. A risk because they wouldn't be covered by provincial health care.
I'm scared about it, right? And but I have to do it now. I cannot just keep living separate from my family.
The government hasn't said when it'll roll out a new system for reunification. And while Singh says he's disappointed, he hopes the delay means the government is committed to finding a better way to reunite families here in Canada. Eva Yugwen-Senge, CBC News, Vancouver.
Almost 1/4 of the babies delivered at Richmond Hospital last year were born to non-Canadian residents. That's the finding of a new Fifth Estate investigation into what's called birth tourism. It involves mothers traveling to Canada to give birth, guaranteeing citizenship for their child. And as Erica Johnson learned, the practice isn't just controversial, it may be straining our healthcare system.
Kathy Shi has flown here from China to give birth.
Your baby will be Canadian. How do you feel about that?
给孩子一个选择的机会吧，以后。
It will cost over $55,000 Canadian, she says, but worth it. Canadian citizenship means easier access to Canadian universities down the road, no international tuition fees, access to publicly funded services like healthcare, and families can be sponsored. The Fifth Estate has compiled figures, learned the number of babies born to non-residents of Canada is higher than ever, almost 5,000 in 2018, up 15% from the year before. And Richmond Hospital in BC is a kind of ground zero. Last year, nearly 1/4 of all births here, more than 450 babies, were born to non-residents, most from China.
Hello， 大家好，我现在所在的位置呢，就是大温地区的列治文医院。
Online, we find websites promoting birth tourism in Canada, some recommending Richmond Hospital. Nurses we talk to there don't want to be identified, but tell us the influx is adding to their workload, compromising care. There are times when the people living here don't get the service that they need, one nurse told us. Another said it's all about the money. If there was no financial income for the hospital, the private pay would have been out the door a long time ago.
I certainly think that, adding additional patients into a healthcare system that isn't staffed appropriately, isn't funded appropriately, is causing strain.
Non-residents at Richmond Hospital pay a deposit of $10,000 for a vaginal delivery, $16,000 for a cesarean. But since 2017, more than $2 million in related healthcare expenses hasn't been paid.
It affects the health system. We need equipments. We need to hire staff.
This specialist works at another Vancouver area hospital. He says birth tourists can rack up unexpected bills of $10,000 a day when a baby needs acute care. Sometimes parents don't have it and leave without paying.
They can't just come, spend the time in the intensive care, take the passport, and then off you go without paying.
Other hospitals are out money too, but the Fifth Estate has found no one is adding up just how much is owed across the country.
Erica, it doesn't seem clear what toll birth tourism may be having on our healthcare system. What does the province have to say about your findings?
Well, Dan, I interviewed the BC Minister of Health, Adrian Dix, and he said birth tourism is a concern and the province is doing a better job of trying to collect on those outstanding debts. But we asked how much money is the province owed province-wide, and we never got that information. We also asked the federal immigration minister for an interview, and that request was declined, but his department said the government is studying this practice of birth tourism and is conducting more research.
All right, Erica Johnson, thanks very much.
Thank you.
A presidential election in Taiwan is just days away, and some citizens watching from afar say the fate of that country's democracy is on the line. There are fears mainland China could exert more control on the region, depending on the result. As John Hernandez tells us, that's why one Taiwanese Canadian living here in Vancouver is flying overseas to vote.
The most important thing is the votes. You know, every ballot actually counts.
For Ruby Wah, spending more than $1,000 on a plane ticket is worth exercising her democratic right.
A lot of people, or especially the activists, have fought for our freedom to be able to vote freely.
The 34-year-old Vancouver teacher was born in Taiwan and still holds citizenship there. With a presidential election just days away, she's getting ready to fly home.
One of the most important reasons why I decided to go to Taiwan to vote is because I feel that this is a very crucial year, and to show my support of the current President Tsai Ing-wen. There's a high possibility that her opponent might win.
President Tsai Ing-wen is seeking re-election. She's pro-Taiwan independence. Running against her, Han Kuo-yu of the Nationalist Party, who's been criticized for his ties to Beijing.
He is a bit more evasive on the issue of Taiwan's sovereignty and Taiwan's democracy against China's intention to rule Taiwan.
As pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong continue to rally against Chinese control, many voters in Taiwan are fearful a similar fight could soon be on their hands. China has never given up its intention to take back Taiwan.
This year's presidential election in Taiwan has come down to a choice between who can sort of preserve Taiwan's sovereignty.
Officials say this election has drawn crowds of Taiwanese Canadians traveling overseas to vote. Flights from Vancouver are in high demand.
So very easy to go back to Taiwan to vote, but not easy to get a ticket. Yeah, that's the problem.
For some, choosing the right candidate will be a no-brainer. But even in Wa's family, not everyone agrees. Her parents are pro-China.
The future of Taiwan does not belong to my parents' generation. It belongs to the future generation.
Alongside the rest of the country, Wa will cast her ballot on January 11th. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Tina Lovegreen joins us now. You're hosting the Late Show for us tonight at 11. What are you watching for?
Well, we're watching this windstorm that Mira reported on earlier in the show. Now we're expecting winds to pick up and reach about 70 kilometers an hour. We've already seen ferry cancellations, and we've seen BC Hydro crews busy trying to repair down power lines. So we'll be watching that and bringing you the latest at 11.
Excellent. That's great. So, do you pay off the mortgage, buy a new car, or take that trip around the world? What would you do if you won the lottery?
Well, tonight, Canada's biggest ever jackpot is up for grabs.
$70 million is the Lotto Max draw prize this evening. There's some people lined up for it in Vancouver for their chance to win that huge amount of moolah.
And with that much at stake, there's no shortage of people trying to beat the almost impossible odds across Canada. Greg Ross caught up with a few of them.
Long before the draw, people were already dreaming about what they could buy if they won the jackpot.
Maybe a boat. I've never had a boat before.
I think I would take a trip to Romania.
Well, you get yourself a lawyer and a good accountant. That's the first thing you do.
People lined up to get in on this record-breaking Lotto Max draw.
Absolutely. We definitely see an increase in ticket sales once we hit a $50 million jackpot.
And with the jackpot hitting $70 million for the first time ever, we could see record-breaking ticket sales as well. This man had a good feeling after getting his.
Let me see. Are those the winning numbers right there?
Yeah.
They are the winning numbers.
Should be the winning number.
This man hoping to increase his odds by buying more tickets.
I got $50 worth of Lotto Max.
But University of Toronto statistics professor Jeffrey Rosenthal says it won't help much.
You are about 5 times more likely to die in a car crash on your way to the store if you're driving to buy a ticket.
That's the winner here.
The odds of winning the Lotto Max are 1 in 33.2 million. Odds so bad that, well,
you're about 8 times more likely that if you pick someone at random, that they will one day be the Prime Minister of Canada. If you pick an adult woman at random, the chance of winning the jackpot is the same as the chance that this random woman will give birth in the next 40 seconds.
The list goes on and on.
Do you think it'd be better for people to just put that money into a bank and save it?
Well, I do. In terms of maximizing your profit, the smartest thing to do is not to buy lottery tickets at all.
But where's the fun in that? Besides, if your numbers do come up, think of all the people you could help.
With my children, adult children, and I would help my nieces and nephews with their mortgages.
What about your local TV reporter? Would you help him?
You know, a coffee, maybe even lunch.
That's better than nothing, I guess.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
What would you do if you
more
won the lottery?
turtlenecks, obviously, and probably Seahawks seasons tickets.
feel
I'd still have about 20 million left.
I feel like you do something sensible, like invest it.
Oh, yes, that's
smartly.
right, because I'm the
Be
geek.
smart.
Yes. What would you do?
Oh, buy a house. Buy a house in Vancouver. There you go.
You'd have about 5 million left.
There you go.
Perfect. Not bad. A reminder, you can watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. The free app is also where you can find our other CBC programs.
CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
What happens now? Concerns about retaliation after the U.S. kills Iran's top military commander. More on the potential fallout after the break. Thanks for joining us on our live stream, where we're always ad-free during our regular TV commercial break. Tonight we have a very impressive tale to share with you. Boxing, one of the most demanding sports, don't you know? Going toe-to-toe with any opponent takes a lot of training and conditioning.
Not just physically, but mentally, of course. As Philip Lee Shannock tells us, one Toronto boxer has already overcome many of those hurdles in childhood.
That's good. Yeah.
He's preparing for his first licensed amateur bout. His trainer and sparring partner put him through the paces.
3.
But seemingly insurmountable challenges are not new for this fighter. Zeus Sequeira was born with quadriplegic cerebral palsy.
I think I've always sort of had that fighting mindset, or like the mindset of a fighter.
He didn't sit up until he was 3 years old. Doctors said he wouldn't be able to stand and would walk with difficulty. Growing up, he was always reminded that he was different.
I remember when I was in the 3rd grade, one of the teachers told the class that if they misbehaved, God would make them like me. You know, like as if it was a punishment or something.
But now he's not only standing, but hitting and getting hit.
It felt like a huge victory because I had an initial diagnosis in '88 saying that, you know, I wouldn't be able to stand and I wouldn't have any mobility below the neck, and then now I'm licensed to fight, you know.
Extensive surgery when he was a teen and his tenacity helped to get him where he is now. At 31, he's cleared to fight in just a few months. His trainer says he deserves his shots.
He's a fighter. He's a fighter inside, and when you have this courage and you're willing to give so much, the results are there.
The owner of the club he trains at says he's an example to anyone who wants to lace up the gloves and go a few rounds.
He has something to fight for, so, you know, I think only good can come from that, and it can inspire a lot of people as well.
Zeus says he gets nervous every time he steps into the ring, but that's nothing compared to the courage it took to step into a boxing club for the first time. His message, just take that first step.
You know, if you have a vision for yourself, make a beginning, no matter how small it is.
And he'll be fighting so others can too. He's hoping to raise $10,000 for Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
Good for him.
Yeah, awesome
Very
story.
impressive. Absolutely, absolutely. You ever tried boxing?
I have. I actually have. I love it. It's very hard. I think it's tiring.
There's so much
it's
cardio.
fun.
Everyone just wants to hit stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like
it is
the
a good
punching bags. Yeah.
Those
That's
are fun. Yeah. Have a good trainer, you'll be all right. Stay with us. We'll have the latest on heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran next. There has been another airstrike inside Iraq tonight, this one targeting Iran-backed militia. It comes just a day after a U.S. airstrike killed Iran's most powerful general, Qasem Soleimani. Now Iran is promising retaliation, and the rest of the world is waiting. Paul Hunter has reaction from the man who ordered the airstrike, Donald Trump.
What the United States did yesterday should have been done long ago.
Donald Trump today on the stunning killing of Qasem Soleimani.
We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war.
Already called one of the most consequential acts of his presidency, the strike against Soleimani was today defended as necessary after intelligence deemed by the U.S. to be urgent.
He was actively plotting in the region to take actions, a big action as he described it, that would have put dozens, if not hundreds, of American lives at risk. We know it was imminent.
Trump critics worried war may now loom today underlined their view Soleimani was a terrorist and a killer, but that lawmakers have seen no details on why this had to happen now. After all, said one, it's hardly the first time the U.S. had considered killing him.
We've had this chance before. Republican and Democratic administrations has always pondered the question, is the value of taking out Soleimani greater than the retaliation and the potential for a protracted conflict? Now that this administration decided to take out Soleimani, they have to come to us and tell us, first of all, what were the facts?
But with the threat from Iran of retaliation, the Pentagon also announced today a dramatic boost to U.S. military strength in the region, sending some 3,500 more U.S. troops to the Middle East on top of the 700 sent earlier this week. Meanwhile, from Trump this week at his Mar-a-Lago resort, a warning. Indeed, it could very well escalate if Iran now tries anything.
I am ready and prepared to take whatever action is necessary, and that in particular refers to Iran.
This as word tonight of another strike within Iraq targeting members of militia backed by Iran, coming as the U.S. urges all Americans in Iraq to now exit immediately. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Canada has hundreds of troops stationed in Iraq as part of a NATO mission there. Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe Champagne issued a statement after the airstrike. He said, in part, the safety and well-being of Canadians in Iraq and the region is our paramount concern. He says we call on all sides to exercise restraint and pursue de-escalation. The minister also stated the Revolutionary Guards, with Soleimani at the helm, had carried out aggressive actions that have had a destabilizing effect in the region and beyond. For years, Soleimani crisscrossed the Middle East, shaping it through violence. Our Carolyn Dunn looks into the legacy he leaves behind.
Outrage exploded on the streets of Tehran. Death to the U.S., they shout. All of their leaders should be killed too, this protester says. General Qasem Soleimani was a leader of towering stature in Iran, powerful, respected, and feared, considered second only to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who today met personally with Soleimani's widow, vowing harsh retaliation for his death. It was a message repeated across Iran. We will take revenge so harsh, says this cleric, their bright day will turn into a dark night. General Soleimani's influence reached far beyond Iran as the head of an elite arm of the Revolutionary Guard. A power that didn't always sit well where he wielded it, so some celebrated his death. We have not wanted Iran's influence in Iraq from the beginning, she says. The U.S. considered Soleimani personally responsible for attacks on their forces in the region for some 20 years. The army he led was designated a foreign terror organization by the U.S.
Things are going to get much uglier in the next few days and next few weeks, regardless of what you think of Iran and General Soleimani. And there is much blood on his hand. But this is the attack on the nerve center.
In recent days, tensions between the U.S. and Iran had escalated over militant activities in Iraq. Now, martyring the hero of Iranian hardliners may spiral the proxy war between Iran and the U.S. out of control. One Islamic Guard commander warned the Americans should prepare themselves. Because of their crimes, he says, there is no peace anywhere. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, London.
Back in this country, federal conservatives are set to choose their new leader on June 27th. Current leader Andrew Scheer announced last month he would be stepping down after failing to beat the Liberals in the October federal election. But a Liberal minority government raises the prospects of a sudden election call, and the Tories want to be ready. They'll choose their new leader at a convention in Toronto. Among those said to be interested in the job, former MPs and Conservative cabinet ministers Peter MacKay and Jean Charest, as well as current Ontario MP Erin O'Toole. Where is he? The father of 4 sent to a remote BC island to find balance vanished. Why some think he's still alive more than a year later. Stick around. Here are some of the stories we're following tonight for you on CBC Vancouver News.
It was quite rough for about the last half hour.
A less than pleasant day on the sea and on parts of the land as another winter storm bears down on our south coast. BC Ferries had to cancel numerous sailings between Vancouver and the island today, while Hydro has been warning customers to be prepared for more outages.
Investigators are in the park canvassing for witnesses.
A 62-year-old man has died after Vancouver police say he was assaulted in Oppenheimer Park. The force says Jesus Cristobal Esteban died after someone attacked him near the basketball courts on New Year's Day. His death is Vancouver's first homicide of 2020.
I was not happy.
And a Burnaby man has begun this year very frustrated. Last-minute changes mean he still cannot bring his parents from India to Canada through a family reunification program. Well, he is the father of 4 children, a star basketball player and coach in the isolated community of Ahousaht, north of Tofino. But Travis Thomas was also tackling substance abuse. Community leaders say he was on a downward spiral. He was sent to an island nearby to clear his head and find balance. Then he disappeared. But as Greg Rasmussen reports, over a year later, the community thinks he is alive and still on that island.
Almost daily, Louis Frank makes this bone-jarring journey in the waters off the west coast of Vancouver Island.
We had trails all the way along.
He's brought us along on the increasingly desperate search for his nephew, now missing for nearly 500 days.
Right up here is where they first put Travis. For the first 6 days he was here.
Oh yeah, thank you to everyone who bought tickets.
Members of the community decided to send 39-year-old Travis Thomas to uninhabited Bartlett Island to help him recover from his struggles with alcohol triggered by the death of his wife. It's a traditional practice to reconnect people to the land and help them battle their demons.
For us, it's a place of healing. It's where we put our people out there that are struggling in their life to heal.
But when it was time to leave, Thomas couldn't be found.
So there are no trails here when you first started searching?
No, there's nothing.
For nearly a year and a half, his family has searched.
See, get down this one, he uses it, he sleeps in this one.
Finding hints he's alive.
Oh, it goes in a ways, huh?
Yeah, still in there.
There's a candle, a cross standing up.
Like this cross found a few months ago in this cave alongside pictures of his family.
That's what I hold on to, is that one day it's going to come to me or to somebody that's out here, say, I'm ready to come home now. Take me home. And that's what I wake up to every day. That maybe today's the day. Travis! It's Unc Sequest! Come have a crumbs of cinnamon bun with me and by the fire! Chikwa! Chikwa in language means come here.
They've set up this camp with clothes,
this is fish jerky,
food, even a place to shave and clean up. All because Frank and others say they have repeatedly spotted Thomas on the island.
But you've personally seen him?
Yeah, I've seen him a few times.
Yeah. Up on the hill above the camp here?
Up on the hill, yeah. Yeah, his hair is really long. He's got a real full beard now.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't shaved for a while.
He believes Thomas watches from afar, convinced everyone he sees is an enemy. Since he's gone missing, hundreds of people have carried out several major searches.
Travis, come out, Trav!
Left behind photos of family and pleas for a safe return.
Do you have his one where he's rapping with Alan?
In the isolated village of Ahousaht, relatives gather to share memories and watch videos.
Just to hear him, hear him talk.
Guys can all go in, take the winter challenge.
Thomas stood out. First as a star basketball player, and later as a coach. His aunt, Lisa Sabas, clings to hope.
It's emotional, very emotional. There's days you cry, there's days you wonder.
Anything for my brother. Woo.
So they search. Even managing a laugh as they brave high seas, battling the waves in a winter storm. She says they don't have a choice.
Well, what would you do if it was your child? What would you do? What would you be doing if that was your child out there?
Hardest hit, Thomas's 4 children and grandchild.
They miss their dad lots. Yeah. So much.
It's images like this that give the family hope, captured at night on a robotic trail camera. This video shows a figure on the island, which helped convince Alfred Dick to continue searching.
After 8 months, I was ready to call it quits, and then they start seeing him again, or they start getting signs that he was there.
Despite their hardship, the family's reluctant to criticize the decision to put Thomas on the island. The house's chief says no one else will be placed there without a thorough mental health screening. As for the ongoing search, they say the RCMP has fallen short.
They've made their appearances. They've, to say that we went out there, but.
While we were on the island, this RCMP helicopter appeared. A spokesperson said it was part of their ongoing efforts, which have included using tracking dogs and bringing in specialized search and rescue experts. So have you seen footprints down that you think might be his, or?
When he goes in between the islands.
For now, the family continues the search largely on its own.
My heart is, I know he's here because I seen Travis. I heard Travis. I know he's alive. I know he is.
But after nearly 500 days, Louis Frank had to turn for home, once again, without answers. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Bartlett Island, BC.
Here's a live and very windy shot of the ferry terminal in Tawassa. Not a pleasant day to travel on the water with another winter storm bearing down on us. Brett Soderholm will have your full provincial forecast after this. Severe is right. Brett Soderholm here with a full provincial forecast. See those flags
winds.
just
they're
going full tilt.
I imagine they are going to be continuing that for at least the next couple of hours. And we've been talking a lot about the rain and a lot the wind, but something we haven't talked about yet was actually how mild it was. Today in Vancouver, 12 degrees or so, but it wasn't the warmest spot in the country.
What was, Brett?
Well, we're going to show you in just 1 second, but I'm going to give that tease because I want to get over to the monitor. I'll show you a time lapse from this morning to see what it looked like. Really can't really tell a whole lot. Those are some fast-moving clouds, if I do say so myself, and that definitely is indicative of the strong winds that we've been seeing throughout the province today, and that trend, of course, continuing for the next little while. But yeah, if you want to play along here, if you could maybe guess the warmest spot, not only just in BC, but in the country today, you're gonna have to go a little bit inland. We're talking about Lillooet, 16.5 degrees. Their normal temperature for today would be about -1, and their previous record set back in 2001 was 11. So considered this record just absolutely shattered, and places like Lytton not too far behind. Now, I wish I could promise you temperatures like that this weekend here in Vancouver or in the metro region, but it's not gonna happen. Instead, you're gonna have to be content with roughly 7 degrees on each day. Tonight, we are going to be dealing with a few showers. These could be falling heavy at times throughout Saturday. Expect that to be continuing much of the day, and it will be largely cloudy. But come Sunday, I think we're going to get a little bit of a break. It's going to start off as being a rainy day, but by the afternoon, we should be able to get into some clearing. That said, all of this rain, all of this snow, and even these winds have been destabilizing our snowpacks across the province. You're just going to see how pervasive these high avalanche danger ratings are. So please do not be going outside to play in the backcountry. Now is not the time. Instead, go somewhere that's much safer, like Cypress or Grouse, or anywhere nearby that has a controlled area to ski or snowboard on. Throughout Saturday and Sunday, we are looking at a good amount of snow falling on both days, 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. However, come Monday and Tuesday, those freezing levels are going to be rising once again, and that's going to make for a little bit of some dicey conditions. Now, in terms of our 5-day forecast, try not to despair too much when you're looking at this. You're not going to see a lot of sunshine in the forecast at all, but you will notice that temperatures at least are not changing all that much. So we can be expecting temperatures near seasonal, about 7 degrees for the weekend, and then we are expecting yet another round of heavy rain come Monday.
Okay, thanks very much, Brett.
You're welcome.
Mass evacuations amid mass devastation. The latest on the wildfires eating Australia after the break. Right now, one of the largest evacuations in Australia's history is underway. The already devastating wildfires are getting worse as temperatures spike into the 40s with high winds. Salima Shivji has the emphatic warning from authorities.
As a steady stream of people rush to get out of harm's way with the Navy's help, some try to block out what they saw earlier this week when stuck on the beach with the flames fast approaching.
When the fires started and the embers were flying everywhere, we just wanted to stay together and it was scary.
Haven't been able to process it, no, not yet, no. We're all down at the foreshore and it's something that I want to forget.
That might not be so easy with the situation worsening. The fires are not just along the eastern coast. On Kangaroo Island in South Australia, the heat is so intense, the flames are morphing into twisters. A now deadly fire, the mayor says, is just impossible to stop. Elsewhere, people are trying desperately to protect their homes as they wait for more extreme heat.
That's what we're worried about. Fires starting around the house, so we're going to stay and defend and put those out the best we can.
Others are camping out not far from their homes, still in the danger zone.
So hopefully there's enough cleared space, and worst comes to worst, we've got the water there to retreat to. Not wanting to get trapped on the highway in a fire, we've decided to stay.
But from officials, a stern warning.
We've been very honest with people about the risk, but if people choose to stay, then that's on them. I guess what they have to do is they have to understand that if they choose to do that, do not expect that there's going to be a fire truck there if you ring.
He says don't wait until the last minute to escape in your car. It's too dangerous, and the window to leave is closing quickly.
If you can leave, you must leave.
As the whole country braces for what's to come. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, New Year's flooding linked to extreme rainfall and inadequate infrastructure has left at least 43 people dead around the capital of Indonesia. Now people are pulling together to clean up before more heavy rain moves in. Local villagers were offered food packets as people tried to resume some semblance of normalcy. At least 180,000 residents have been displaced by rising river levels that submerged nearly 200 neighborhoods. Landslides have buried a dozen people. Others were electrocuted or died of hypothermia. Many bodies were only found once the waters receded. Jakarta is prone to flooding and is sinking because of uncontrolled extraction of groundwater. Indonesia's president blames delays in flood control canal construction because of land acquisition troubles. Pumps are sucking water out of the worst flooded areas. France's finance minister toured a normally busy shopping district in central Paris today. He's pledging to help business owners hurt by a prolonged transport strike. This fishmonger says his earnings have been cut in half because fewer customers are there. The strike has also disrupted deliveries to shops and is making it harder for workers at those stores to get to work. The strike began nearly a month ago to protest the government's plan to overhaul public sector pensions. Shopkeepers say they're sympathetic to the plight and fight for pensions, but don't think their businesses ought to suffer as a result. Well, Eli couldn't just pick one. Coming up, they've 3 movies our film critics said were the best of 2019. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is a proud sponsor of the Push International Performing Arts Festival. Expand your horizons and catch groundbreaking performances January 21st to February 9th. And get your tickets and celebrate the city's brightest talent at the BIV Top 40 Under 40 Awards on January 30th. CBC Vancouver's Anita Bath and Dan Burritt return as co-hosts for this inspiring event. And for more, check us out online.
Whether you were a fan of the drama, comedy, or action movies, 2019 certainly had it all.
So that made it a challenge for our CBC film critic to pick his favorite. So instead, here's Eli Glasner with his top 3.
Yeah, we know it, keep going. I came straight off the stage up a glass door.
Excuse me. Oh. What? Oh. What? Missed ya. I missed you. I missed you so much. In one night.
It probably won't surprise you to hear that John Hughes movies were a big part of my upbringing. I mean, Ducky. We all love Ducky, right? Okay, I love Ducky. And you could see Booksmart as kind of a modern update of that high school teen formula.
The last day of school. Are you kidding me, Samantha?
But there's so much more going on with this film. This is about two friends who've judged the high school crowd around them until one night they start to see who they truly are. And the beating heart of this film is that friendship between those two women, and one heck of a first feature from Olivia Wilde.
You ever show up late? No. Do you have any moving violations? No. Do you drink on the job? No. You ever hit anybody? On a job? Yeah. I don't think so.
All right, let's get this out of the way. The Irishman is long. It's supposed to be long because it forces you to spend that time with Frank Sheeran as he navigates his way in this world of gangsters and teamsters. And after all the blood and talk is done, what it's about is time ticking away as this hitman who took so much from others finally makes his peace.
I'm trying to give you the tools to succeed in this world. It's not easy out there. Everything I do is for y'all. Everything.
From Joker to Parasite, Hustlers, Knives Out, and Motherless Brooklyn. Again and again, for me, the theme of 2019 was the various ways we divide ourselves, whether it's shattered societies or souls. And that theme is present in my #1 film of the year, Waves. But here, the trauma is personal. It begins with a family brimming with potential. The father-son bond is strong, but too much is left unsaid. And in those spaces, that crack widens until utter destruction.
Come on, you pushed him. What a difference. I'm sorry.
With a roving camera, a blistering soundtrack, and actors at the peak of their emotional range, Waves shows us a family torn apart. But then the next step, the hard part, the healing.
It's been hard, hasn't it?
Let go of a prayer.
The end, it's something the dad says.
All we have is love.
All we have is love. That's what it's about. The love. And that's what I loved in 2019. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
I've got some catching up to do.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of those?
I haven't, but I've heard great things about The Irishman.
Yes, if you have a weekend to watch it.
This is it.
I know.
It's going to be raining, so
That's true.
you might
We've got
as
all
well.
the reasons why. Thank you for joining us this evening. You can always find our news programs online at cbc.ca/BC.
And I'll have your next local news right here at 11 after the National.
Good night.
See you then.